Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 28 of Sports Shorts. This is Bobby Hacker, your host, immediate past president of the Sports Lawyers Association. And today we'd like to welcome our guest, Dev Kumar Parmar, who's I could go on at length, but how about we just say a sports lawyer and an academic? Is that fair enough?
That's very fair, and thank you very much, Bobby, for having me on the show today.
And I appreciate it. I know it's probably late in your neck of the woods, so genuinely appreciate you getting on to do this with us. As we start our program for our listeners, our members, one of the things we'd like to start with is to explain what your job is, or in your case, jobs, and what was the path that you took there. And as we were talking earlier, there are different pathways that I think U.S. lawyers take to begin their practice versus lawyers in
Sure.
other parts of the world. So tell us a little bit about your background.
Oh well, thank you, Bobby. And look, I think everyone's pathway is different and is well storied. So I'll try and summarize it as best as possible. And if I do go on for too long, then please don't hesitate to cut me off. So I've been involved in sports law for about 10 years now, more or less. And our practice is international. I'm the principal director of my own practice, which is based across the UK and Spain primarily. However, our client base is completely global. So it's something we're very proud of in that sense. We're private practitioners where most of our work is within the world of football or soccer. However, we also cover a number of different sports, including volleyball, table tennis, ice hockey, boxing, and now weightlifting as well. So I'm very humbled to have positions in some of these. So I sit as the legal and governance director of the British Volleyball Federation, for example. I sit as an arbitrator for the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation and on the investigatory chamber for the International Weightlifting Federation. So we work primarily in football, but we do have exposure to other areas as well. And then aside from my legal practice, so to speak, I've got the honor of being the academic director at the Instituto Superior de Derecho y Economía, also known as ISDE, based in Spain, which is a global leading institution for sports law education. So I oversee the academic direction for the global master at ISDE, and I also co-direct the full-time master. So I've got an academic practice in addition to all the real life legal stuff, let's say.
Well, that's great. And we had talked earlier, there's, in American traditional practice here, you go to university, you graduate, and then you head off to 3 years of law school, you take a bar, and you start practicing law. I think it's a little bit different for folks in your neck of the woods. Can you share with us a little on that?
Yeah, sure. So I looked into the American legal system quite a lot when I was younger, and I did a bit of preliminary training with a view to getting over and doing the NYB or the California bar. It didn't quite work out that way. However, whereas in the States, I understand you do law primarily as a postgraduate course.
Correct.
In the UK, or I'll specify England at the moment because we've got slightly different legal systems between England and Wales and Scotland and so on. So, where I was training was England and Wales. And in England, I did law as an undergraduate degree, as an LLB. And then I went off to train as a barrister immediately. So, I had finished my law degree by the time I was, 22 years old, more or less. And I was training for the bar when I was 23 years old. So I must have been called to the bar when I was about 23 or 24, which I presume would be quite alien to someone who's training in the States, because maybe you'd only finish your college at 21 or 22, and then you'd go off and do the law degree and so on. So it's different in that sense. And when I was called to the bar, the first thing that I was doing was focusing on criminal law, criminal defense, in fact. Effectively doing what a criminal offense attorney might do in the States. I was working for a firm, and I was involved in all aspects. So dealing with the grassroots investigation work, gathering of evidence, and then doing all of the late nights and heading over to police stations and all the really mucky but also quite perversely glamorous stuff at the same time for people that are in that area. My intention was always to work within sports. I guess sports law education wasn't as formalized at that time. Certainly when I was training. So for me, I had this idea that I wanted to be, let's say in inverted commas, a lawyer for football players, but I didn't quite understand the concept of being a sports lawyer. So I was always trying to find a way to pivot towards that. And I had this pipe dream that I would be involved in criminal law for 10 years, and then I would all of a sudden just turn 90 degrees and become a sports lawyer or become a lawyer for football players. In the end, I was involved in criminal law for about 4.5, 5 years. And I managed to build up in the interim a bit of a contact base, let's say, a bit of a loose client base. And I was able to pivot, as I said, about 10 years ago into sports law full time. So a lot of the work that I did outside of my work in criminal defense, which was also quite varied, a lot of the work I did was effectively just trying to get to know people. And it is quite boring, quite ground level stuff, but very simply reaching out to people, sending letters, sending emails, reaching out to people on LinkedIn, trying to meet up with people for coffees, telling everybody who I was, what sort of competence I had, what sort of interest I had in getting involved in the sporting field, and how I would be happy to assist them. Of course, at that time, all I was doing was saying that I'll do pro bono work for them, just so I can get my foot in the door. And pro bono work is something we're going to discuss again very shortly. And fortunately, after hundreds of polite rejections, it came to a few people that were willing to let me assist, and slowly things started to develop to a point where, as I mentioned, after about 5 years of dabbling in criminal law, I had enough work where I could just turn around and say, okay, it's time for me to make the change. Monday morning, we're gonna focus on sports full time, and let's see if I can survive, or how long I can survive without getting any money in. And fortunately, for me and for us, in terms of my company, we were generating an income fairly shortly thereafter, and thankfully, I touch wood, it's developed ever since.
Yeah, I think that's a universal truth for lawyers, especially younger lawyers who have an eye towards wanting to get in the sports space, which is way broader than I think most students realize. The opportunity to allow yourself to be called a sports lawyer.
Yeah.
And I often say to them, well, it'd be great if you could get your dream job to start, but if you can't, spend some time in a courtroom, because whether it's civil litigation or even criminal litigation, you learn certain skills that are very transferable in terms of process. And seeing, especially in a commercial context, you see a business dispute gone wrong, and you realize, well, had I only addressed this in the underlying agreement, we never would have ended up in this place. So, which in turn makes you a better transactional lawyer. In your case, it seems that going from defending, doing criminal defense work, to getting into a role of being an arbitrator and different kinds of disputes, which I think are seen almost as quasi-criminal because of the penalties involved in many respects. It's just how you build your legal skills toolbox.
Absolutely. And you mentioned it right there, Bobby, with regards to the transferable skills. I mean, one of the things that I found from the exposure that I had to criminal law was that the dynamism of working in crime really helped me with my foundation and also my platform when I was getting involved in football, because the football industry is an extremely quick moving industry, particularly at certain periods of the year when we have the transfer registration period, for example, when players are moving from one club to another. Uh, Often one doesn't have time to sit down and think, let alone time to draft submissions and to clock off at 5 o'clock from the office and so on and so forth. It does become a 24-hour day and a 7-day week, which is something that I was quite used to from being at the police station at 2 a.m. in the morning, for example, on a Sunday or a Monday because someone's got drunk and got into a fight. So that kind of exposure enabled me to acclimatize a lot more quickly to being able to work longer hours, work effectively, and work with the same level of efficiency. And as you also mentioned, if you come from a commercial law background or a civil law background, it may be that you're stronger or you're more able to adapt to dealing in the commercial nature of a football contract or an NBA contract or whatever else it might be. So there are a number of transferable skills that one can pick up from other areas of law. There are also a number of transferable skills that one can pick up from jobs outside of the law. There's always something that can be learned, whatever you are doing. A lot of the work that I was doing when I was still as an undergrad law student was in the retail and the sales sector. And as much as people may have looked away from that area when I was interviewing initially, ultimately, it enabled me to learn how to deal with people at a ground level. And that assisted me when I got into crime, and it's now assisted me when I've gotten into sports. So I think ultimately it's about people keeping an open mind and being able to understand and appreciate how best they can advocate the transferable skills they've picked up from any aspect of their life.
Yeah, so true. Now, in addition to you talked about the nature of your practice and the ISD program that you run, and they've appeared at our conference in years as a program, I believe, at St. John's in New York that's affiliated with you folks. In addition to that, you've also served as an arbitrator before CAS and FIFA. That's correct, right?
No, so I don't serve as an arbitrator at CAS. I litigate at CAS.
Are you litigating CAS?
I litigate at CAS, yes. So invariably we engage with the arbitrators, and I'd like to think that I've got a good gauge of how they work. But no, I sit as an arbitrator for the International Mixed Martial Arts Federation, and I've sat on several disciplinary panels when we've had issues within volleyball, for example. But just to be clear, I'm not a CAS arbitrator. I appear on behalf of clients at CAS.
Okay. Well, let's turn to the AIAF. Is that the organization? The pro bono organization in FIFA?
Well, no, the AIF, that's the Association Internationale des Avocats du Football. And my French accent is horrible, so I hope I didn't completely mess that up. But that's effectively the International Association of Football Lawyers, which is it's a body, it's a think tank where effectively all of the leading sports lawyers who are focused in football from around the world come together to share knowledge and to drive change, positive change within the football sector. And for some reason, they let me into the organization as well. So that's the AIAF. That's a different thing. Okay. But with FIFA, there is a pro bono unit that was set up by FIFA. It was initially ideated in 2019, and then once myself and I believe 20 others from around the world were appointed by FIFA, of course 2020 came along and the whole world changed, so it got pushed back a little bit. But yes, I'm on the FIFA Pro Bono scheme, and the mandate is from 2020 to 2023 at the moment.
Well, that's an interesting thing. I think most people, when they think about FIFA, they're thinking about international footballers, and they're making, millions and millions of dollars, and they've got all this money, and it's fabulous. But my understanding is, and please correct me if I'm wrong, is that FIFA has established this pro bono program for FIFA members, athletes, and whatnot, so that they understand what they're getting into, because not everybody is has lawyers, and there's an educational element. And I think I have to applaud, on a rare occasion, FIFA for putting together something to protect the athletes, which it seems they're doing through this program.
Well, the knowledge development hub, I believe it's referred to, is one of the projects that the new FIFA administration has put in place. I know that it's colloquially been referred to as FIFA 2.0, where we've got the new admin that have come in, and we've got a very strong legal and governance department that has come in. They've tried to engender and to drive change. And one of the programs they've got together is the legal aid program. And as you rightly said, Bobby, whilst there is an impression that football players, and I think, to be fair, every athlete, right, at the top end, there's this global impression that he or she is earning shed loads of money, and they're living the most glamorous lifestyles. And that's not incorrect. However, that's the 0.001% of the entire ecosystem. And as football is the most popular sport in the world, and is certainly the most populous in terms of professional athletes around the globe, we have a number of professional athletes that are earning relatively low sums every single month, while still being professional. Therefore, it often happens that when a dispute arises, they don't have access to, nor do they have the finance to be able to obtain relevant legal counsel. So FIFA's put this scheme together in order to effectively ensure that where it's needed, the scheme can release the applicants of their obligation to pay for the cost of any relevant proceedings, and also it can assist the individual to appoint pro bono counsel. Now, I mentioned specifically individual because this scheme is only open to natural persons. It's not open to clubs or other entities, but it is there for those that don't have the ability to afford counsel. So, Cristiano Ronaldo may not be eligible to seek this scheme, or Wayne Rooney or Zlatan or whoever else, but the hundreds of thousands of others, the professionals that might be playing in, a smaller professional league in Serbia or Montenegro or the Seychelles or in Zambia, they would be in a position to contact FIFA and seek our help.
And in terms of the help you offer, does it cover everything from, explaining what the contract they're signing says, to if there's a failed drug test, for example, and anything in between? Would be, the panel members would be available to assist those qualified FIFA member athletes?
Well, with regards to the scheme and the way the scheme is supposed to work, is if let's say a situation of dispute arises, the individual concerned should contact FIFA, contact the relevant secretariat. So that might be the disciplinary secretariat or the ethics secretariat, and highlight to them that they've got X dispute, or they've got X issue that's being investigated, leading to a charge against them. They don't have the funds to be able to seek their own counsel. They would have to demonstrate that by way of a motivated letter and any supplementary evidence they can provide. And then FIFA would make a determination. Well, the chairperson of the relevant committee would make a determination as to whether pro bono counsel would be availed for them, and then give this individual a list of the counsel in the group, inviting them to select in numerical order the top 3 people that they would be happy to represent them. So that's the way it would work out, rather than being a general, let's say, council position where someone's got a question about a clause in their contract and they would contact FIFA and then FIFA would appoint one of us. I think that's something that no doubt many of the members on our group would be happy to assist with anyway. Invariably, we've all been appointed onto this group because we're willing to support the ecosystem. But in terms of the actual process, it's an appointment that comes about when a situation of dispute has arisen, rather than simply having a general chat or a general consultation as to what to do or what to avoid, if that makes sense.
Sure. So, for example, if I'm playing in some small country soccer federation, and let's say, for example, I get drug tested and they say, you've tested positive, and I go, it's impossible. They would then go through this process to reach out to the local secretariat, say, and then at FIFA, they would look at it and say, okay, this guy is making, $150 a game. He doesn't have the wherewithal to afford counsel. We will, give him the list and he picks 3. And then are each of the 3 that he selects does FIFA reach out to them saying, we have this available case?
Absolutely. So the way it would work would be FIFA would reach out to these individuals and would effectively highlight to these individuals that that there's a case that they've been earmarked for, and then of course they would request clarification as to whether that council would be willing to be able to deal with the matter based on the timelines in hand, and also B, whether they would be able to in terms of any potential conflicts, of course, that might arise. So the reason for selecting 3 is just on the off chance that numbers 1 and 2 are conflicted in terms of time or interest. So that's the way it would happen. FIFA would contact them directly. However, I myself and several other members of the group have had people contact us directly because our names are in the public domain. So we have had people contact us directly saying, "Hey, you're a pro bono lawyer. Can you give us free advice?" So it's of course, and then it's down to each one of us to be able to determine whether we've got the time and the ability to do that. But we've had, in our office, we've had a few calls. We even had one last week where basically we just had someone saying, "Look, I've seen that you're a pro bono lawyer. Can you help me out for free?" And we're always happy to have a general chat, and then after that, if they've got to follow the process, they've got to follow the process.
So this is, as you said, this program was launched, COVID hit. So it seemed to me that it's probably, would you say it's just now starting to get some traction, or has it been building for a while?
50-50, really. It's quite a good question, to be fair, Bobby. So as you rightly said, it was COVID hit. If I'm not mistaken in terms of the timeline, and forgive me, the dates might be plus minus a little bit, but I think we were appointed probably like October 2019, let's say. And I seem to recall that we were supposed to engage in our training in the first quarter of 2020. So it might have been February 2020 or something like that. And, again, after that, everything just everywhere went. So we initially had our training, and fair play to FIFA, in the midst of everything else they had to do. They had all of these issues with, the logistics for all of the games around the world that they had to oversee, force majeure issues, and so on and so forth. They still managed to get this through, and we had our training in the final quarter of 2020. So since then, the group has been coming together more or less every month or so to keep each other up to date and abreast of what's going on in each of our jurisdictions. And of course, we're also now really getting into publicity. So as a group and as individuals, we've had quite a lot of contact from some of the publications, such as Football Legal or Law in Sport, or many of the others that you might have heard, who are now tapping into this FIFA pro bono thing. What is it actually? And tell us more about it. So yeah, I think it's twofold. Now it's starting to come to the forefront, but it also has been bubbling for a while in the background. It's not like our group was totally dormant. Ellen Zavian, who I would say is the de facto chair of our group, she's been extremely active and very positive, and many others in the group have been working in the same way.
And you mentioned earlier that the essentially the charge from FIFA only runs through 2023. Would they have to renew this program to continue on? Do you have any insight into that?
I would imagine so. Now, there's a parallel situation with UEFA. So FIFA isn't the only body in the world that is doing this. UEFA also has a similar scheme, and the UEFA mandate is just about to, well, the first one is just about to come to an end, as far as I understand. So they're going to go through their renewals, and I imagine it will be a similar situation with FIFA, where they'll take a I think they'll take a call at the end of next year, and they'll probably invite reapplications from our group as well, with regards to who would want to stay on for an extended mandate, and then they'll move on from there. But with regards to any detailed procedure, I think it would be improper for me to say at the moment, because I don't know, and it's the first time it's been done, so that we don't have any real precedent to go off either.
Well, it seems like a tremendously valuable program for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is sort of that underlying obligation of giving back that I think so many of us is a guiding principle for so many of us in our practice. And and certainly, helping out, a guy who's, had an issue in some minor league, maybe one day he's playing in the city of London for an EPL club and I need a lawyer. And he already knows one.
Maybe so, maybe so. I mean, in fairness, and I think you touched upon it from the outset of your point there, Bobby. Is it's about giving back. It's not about, let's say, hedging your bets and hoping that one of these people is going to turn into a gold mine for you. It's just about trying to ensure that you do what you can for the ecosystem, for the framework around you, and to make sure that sport continues to thrive. And I'm very grateful, A, that I've been honored to be appointed onto the group, but B, that I'm surrounded by like-minded people on the group, like I mentioned, Ellen, Ugo Vaz, Felix Majani, when you see all of the names on the group, we've got a number of different people from all around the world who are all extremely prominent sports lawyers in their own right. And we've all been appointed to try and assist over here. And there's a need for it for several reasons. So, for example, FIFPro is as a global union is doing a wonderful job. And I personally have got great relationships with them. But if you look at the disparity, FIFA as the governing body of football around the world has 211 member associations, right? We've got more FIFA member associations than we have of nations signed up to the UN, for example, 192 that have signed up to the UN. So we've got 211 FIFA member associations, but FIFPro's coverage in terms of having player unions in each country is about 65 or 66. Now, invariably, this covers the vast majority of the more developed football economies around the world. But numerically, you're talking about 150 odd countries which are unrepresented in terms of unionship. So there's quite a large gap that needs to be filled. And I think, the FIFA pro bono unit, the UEFA pro bono unit, and of course many other individuals can go about assisting this in a great way. So I hope that the body, whether I'm still part of it or not, I hope that the body does become an integral part of the furniture, and does really add value to the football system in the years to come.
Well, I can't thank you enough for taking the time with us today and sharing about this particular organization, which I think is remarkable and perhaps maybe some sports organization in the States will realize there's a lot of, minor league and semi-pro athletes who certainly can't afford counsel. And, they might be able to reach out to local bar associations, but to have an organization focused within the sport to help out those participants that are really the bedrock, the foundation that allows you to have a Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi or any of the greats. But it starts with all these hundreds and thousands of players who are playing at these lower levels, and now they're being treated with, I think, some rectitude by this existence of this pro bono panel. So as a sports fan generally, and as a lawyer who believes in giving back, I just want to thank you and all the other people on that panel for the work you do. It's good PR for lawyers. Let me just say that. It's good stuff. So.
No, thank you very much, Bobby. And look, if anyone, you mentioned the minor leagues in the States, for example, if you were able, or if anyone listening or watching today has got any interest, if you look at the group of us on the pro bono list, we've got coverage in every continent. We've got dozens of languages between us. Me myself, no, I could barely speak English, but across the whole group. We've got French, Spanish, Swahili, Farsi, German, Greek. Everything is covered. So if anybody needed any support, please don't hesitate to go onto the FIFA website to give if there's a dispute, to give the Secretariat a shout. And even if there isn't a dispute, but you wanted to reach out and find out more about the group, there's a LinkedIn page which is fairly active for FIFA Pro Bono Council, and it's starting to get a lot more coverage now with Football Legal, Law in Sport, several other publications and organizations, and also now with the platform that you very kindly provided us.
Well,
so
no.
Please don't hesitate to get in touch if anyone needs anything.
Well, really, really appreciate it. And I have one more question for you, and I want to put you on the spot. Who's your club?
Well, let's see if we can go and get 3 points in Madrid tomorrow, but I'm not going to say any more than that. You can draw your own conclusions.
Dev, it's been a real pleasure. And to our audience, don't forget, it's time to renew your membership with the Sports Lawyers Association. Please go to sportslaw.org and renew your membership, and keep your eyes and ears open, because details for our annual conference this May in Atlanta were being published. We've got a microsite up, and more details and more specifics are coming your way. And I hope to see you all in Atlanta in May. And Deb, thank you again. It was great chatting with you. Really interesting stuff. And I wish you well, and good luck with that new baby.
No, thank you very much, Bobby. Absolute pleasure. And anything you and your organization need, I'm totally at your disposal, and I'm sure I can speak on behalf of the entire FIFA Pro Bono group and say that they will be available for you guys in the future as well. So you guys have a fantastic day over there and wherever all of the audience is right now, and I look forward to hearing from you guys soon.
Great. Cheers.
Cheers. Bye-bye.